Good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever you are at. Welcome to Mentor Mornings, my friends. It's Saturday right now when I'm filming this, and can I just say it's a beautiful day this morning. I'm out here. I got a chicken right over here next to me. This is our oldest chicken. I take this thing off here and show you this here. She is so old. Oh, I can't do it with this. I would have to pop that thing out of there. Yeah, it doesn't matter. You guys don't want to see it anyway. So Depression Solving 101. You know what this is on Saturdays I kind of like to do like a free form, free flow, where I don't really have anything scripted out. I got a few notes jotted down, and where we just kind of talk about stuff. So if you guys have any questions when you're on here, feel free, drop a line, drop a question. See, can you hear her? She's over here. She's making all kinds of racket. I think she's trying to say hello to you. So yeah, so if you guys have any questions, feel free, drop them. We're just doing a free flow. So Depression Solving 101. Why can I talk about depression? We all struggle, right? Like we all go through difficult things inside of our lives. And I've had my fair share of those. And, you know, like depression really knocked me on my keister for a long time. And I was desperate to try to find a way to solve it, like to fix it inside my life, because like I remembered what it was like when you think about when you're a child, if you can imagine and go back, you know, unless something real catastrophic happened, you know, like as a child, the world is a playground. You know, every day is a completely new experience of joy and happiness. And I knew that, you know, like there should be a way that we can live like that inside of our lives. Like there should be a way that we can live like that every single day. And, you know, this came from seeing a lot of struggle and a lot of frustration. And it came from seeing also, and seeing people live on the other side of it. You know, there's always going to be people inside of our lives that are examples to us of how we can live. And they show us, like, you know, there's that concept that the people around us are a mirror to ourselves. You know, and so we can go through life seeing other people and ignoring that, or we can look at it and say, what can I learn from this other person about myself and how I respond and how I live my life. Anyway, I don't, you know, I hope I'm not boring you guys. This is just, I just felt like, you know, like anybody out there who's struggling with depression, especially with all the crazy stuff that's going on today, you know, or especially with starting to dive into information like conspiracy theories and alternate information, and starting to see the dark underbelly of what is our world and these elite rings and satanic cults and all of the crazy stuff that's happening and coming to light today. You know, it's there's a lot of stuff happening, whether we're aware of it or not, inside of our subconscious mind. You know, as this information is presented to us, like I was talking about in yesterday's video, not only are our brains changing, but our filters are changing. Our perception of the world is changing. And when that perception of the world changes, like there's going to be very fine, small changes that we make inside of our lives as a result of. You know, William James says, "My experience is what I agree to attend to." And this is a result of something called the Tetris effect. And I read this it's called The Happiness Advantage by Sean Achor. And what it is it looks at like positive psychology. So, you know, like traditional psychology is totally stuck on looking at people and trying to understand their problems, where positive psychology was developed. It strictly looks at the people who are doing really good and how they do that. Like, how do they maintain that positive selfness, you know, like through life, through struggle. And I've had a number of people ask me, like, Nate, how do you stay so positive all the time? What's your secret? And, you know, my secret was dogged pursuit and being on the other side and seeing a lot of people on the other side. I don't know if you know my story, but and I don't want to get into the whole thing, but, you know, like I've seen a lot of mental illness inside of my family. I've seen a lot of that. And And the Tetris effect, what I was leading into is, the Tetris effect is the principle. There was a study that was done at Harvard, and what they did is they took a whole group of people. I think they paid, it was like 29 students, and they paid them to sit down and play Tetris for multiple hours a day for 3 days straight. And I mean, that sounds like a pretty cool research. I would love to be a part of that. And what they found is that the kids who did this, their minds actually began to shift. And how we know that is that the following days, as days went on, after they did this Tetris blitz, like these kids were talking about how they were looking, and Tetris, if you're not aware, so Tetris is just a game where you have like these blocks that come down the screen, and the whole goal is, there's 4 different shaped blocks. And the whole goal is to line up the blocks as they reach the bottom of the screen so that you have an unbroken line. That's the whole goal. That's it. It sounds real basic, but it's a lot of fun. So anyway, so these kids that played this Tetris for the 3 days straight, what they found is that for days following, their minds, as they were looking out, they'd look at buildings and they say, if I laid that on the side, and they'd take shapes and they'd imagine it. They were dreaming about Tetris. And I know you're like thinking like, yeah, so what's the big deal? The big deal is that our focus makes up the reality that we experience. Our focus makes up the reality of what we experience. And so often we get drug along. We feel like life is just pulling us through. The information is just pulling us through life, when in reality, we have the reins. Maybe they're laying at our feet. We don't know that we can grab them, but we have the reins the entire time. We can pick that up. And so what I want to talk about to you is, I just want to lay out some of the things that I did inside of my life, that I think are easy enough where you can kind of look at it like, yeah, that makes sense. And maybe you just apply one. That's the thing about making change inside of our life, is that like we want to go from point A to point Z like yesterday. Maybe that's just me, but I think we're all pretty similar in that fact. Like, if we want to make change, if something has shown up inside of our life, like if we have a lower back issue, or if we have a knee issue, if our shoulder is sore, if we have depression, if we have anxiety, the reality is that developed probably over a pretty long period of time. By the way, guys, I so appreciate you being on here right now, listening to my rambling, and like my whole intention is, in doing this, I want to serve you on a deep level. I do, 100%. And also, if you appreciate me doing this, could you please hit the thumbs up button, subscribe if you are not already, and share this video if you feel is worthwhile, or share my channel, help me get my channel out there. It's really important to me that this channel grows. And I've been grinding on this thing for nearly 2 years, and the growth rate it's okay. It's all right, it's getting there. But I would love this thing to take off, so that I can devote my life to serving people. Okay, anyway, back to what I was talking about. Yeah, so the tools that I was talking about that we implement inside our lives, and we want to go from point A to point Z right away. The reality is that those conditions that developed inside of our bodies, the sore backs, knees, depression, anxiety, whatever, they developed over a long period of time, a very long period of time. And to expect them to change overnight is what drives us towards a pill. It's what drives us towards the easy solutions, is wanting that instant fix. And so we have to be okay with taking steps every day towards that direction. And the reality is, if you start taking steps, let's say that you suffer from severe depression. If you start taking steps now, and real steps inside of your life, you're gonna start feeling change. And it's those tiny moments where you realize like something has shifted inside of my life, and you feel that overwhelming just euphoria and excitement, knowing that you have an impact over your life. Like, we have control over the direction of our life. I think that's one of the things when I go back and I look at the Nate that existed beforehand. Like if I go back, guys, after like my freshman year, I had, right before my freshman year, I had what on the outside looked like the ideal family life, the quote unquote happy mom and dad, and and we had a decent house, and you know, my dad was an entrepreneur, and things were looking good. And then all of a sudden, it was like a little bomb went off, and the family just poof, evaporated. And so I went through the 4 years of high school, you know, from knowing one thing right into something completely different. And I know that there are people out there that have stories that, you know, would crush that, you know, as far as what they experienced. But you know, I was lost. I started drinking. I felt like life had no direction. Started doing drugs. And when I go back and I look at that, like, the awakening for me was when I realized, like, I am responsible for Nate. Like, nobody's gonna come save me. Nobody's gonna pull me out. I had to grab a hold of that. And so, like, I think that's one of the very first steps, is when we realize that we can affect change inside of our life that we're actually gonna feel. Like, where we can actually make changes and not rely on somebody outside, not rely on a doctor, an authority figure, somebody to give us something, to give us that change, but to grab a hold of it ourselves. And so, you know, like, here's what I want to talk about. So resolving depression, or like what I learned. And that's that, you know, as I encountered all kinds of things, I became fascinated with health. And so the very first step, I think, for anybody who's struggling with anxiety or depression, is to dive into creating a healthy brain. And a healthy brain lives inside of our body. So to create a healthy brain, we have to improve the health of our body. So, like, when you talk about, or when you look at some of the studies done by Michio Kaku, I think I said that right. He's this Japanese scientist, and he's done studies with water. And when you take water and you expose it to, like, frustration or anger, like a directed thought, consciousness at that water, when you focus on that and then freeze it, the ice pattern looks like terrible. It's terrible. It's completely deformed, it's ugly. But when you have water and you freeze it and you look at those ice crystals afterwards, they're beautiful, geometric shapes. And our bodies are made of a significant portion of water. So the reason why I say that is because we're talking about the health of the body. But we're also talking about consciousness and how we talk to ourselves, how we speak to ourselves. So if we can learn to speak to ourselves with kindness, with love, with appreciation, with gratitude, you know, looking at our wins, supporting ourselves, being our own first biggest cheerleader, you know, watching those thoughts, then we're doing is, like, we're healing that water in a way. That's a fascinating study. The impact of consciousness on the geometric shapes that water freezes to. That's powerful, that we can impact ourselves in that way. And so then if we can adjust those thoughts, and that's a constant, every single day business. I mean, it just starts with becoming aware of how we're speaking to ourselves. That's it. It just starts with hey, how you doing? Was it Skylar? It just starts with how we speak to ourselves. And, like, I know that sounds super simple, and it is super simple. It just takes, like, constant awareness. And so, like, I know a lot of people that'll actually get tattoos to remind them, like, to remain in that present moment, to remain aware. And anyway, okay, so the next thing is food. It all comes down to food. Like, if what we're putting, you think about it, our bodies, they say that every 7 years we are living in almost an entirely new body. So that means, like, myself right now, if I go back 8 years, that was a completely different body that I inhabited, yet I am still here. And so our bodies are literally made of the food that we put inside of them. And during these times, I know that a lot of people are struggling to, you know, find access to good food. Yet, if we struggle with depression, it's absolutely imperative. And so, if, you know, like all of this stuff that I'm talking about, going through and trying to resolve depression, it's really about just taking one step and focusing on that one step until you've mastered it 100%. So whether you focus on what I was just talking about, becoming present and aware of how we talk to ourselves and becoming your own powerful cheerleader, because nobody else out there is going to do it. We can't rely on anybody. Our parents, our grandparents, our partners, our loved ones, our kids, like we're all struggling with our own things. Nobody's perfect. We all got our own things, and people are always going to reflect back to us where we are weak or where we struggle. Like they're going to kind of hit those pain points sometimes. And so we need to be our own cheerleader from the start. I think that's one of the most powerful ones. And it's something I'm still mastering. I really appreciate your presence here on earth. You're doing such, thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I'm trying, man. I am trying. So becoming our own cheerleader and then changing food. So just pick one of these. Just pick one out of these two. And when it comes to food, for those of you that just jumped on, I was talking the power of water and Michio Kaku's work, where he froze water, exposed it to positive thoughts and exposed it to negative thoughts, like repeatedly, and then froze that water and looked at the geometric shapes. The negative thoughts, the water was completely deformed. The positive thoughts, that water was beautiful geometric shapes. And it's the same thing goes for music. So that the water that was exposed to like heavy, distorted metal music, angry, that water when it was frozen was completely deformed. The water that was exposed to a beautiful symphony like Bach or something like that, that was beautiful and geometric. And so when I learned that, it just hit me. It's like, oh my gosh, what I am allowing into my life, what I am bringing into in my environment is going to change like the geometric shape or like the coherence of my body and my mind. And so like this goes back to William James. He says, my experience is what I agree to attend to. My experience is what I agree to attend to. So where we put our focus, what we allow into our realm, what we allow into our reality, what we allow into our lives, what we allow into our body, that is all, we're all letting everything through a filter. We're letting it pass through. And so it's just developing those first steps. And like I was saying earlier, everybody wants to get from A to Z right away. And what we need to know is that if we develop these conditions, depression, anxiety, a sore back, a sore knee, a sore shoulder, those developed over a very long period of time. And so undoing them is going to take either an equal amount of time or close to it. We can't expect to just rise out of depression or anxiety, like within the first week or even month. But we can expect to see progress and momentum. Like when we see that progress and momentum, it lights a fire inside of us and we can move forward and continue doing it. And so focusing on one of these things, being our own cheerleader, putting good, healthy food inside of our body, that means staying away from anything on the box that has stuff on the label that we can't pronounce. It means moving closer to like how the farmer eats, like getting it straight from there. And like, yeah, preparing food, it's kind of a pain in the butt. And in today's world, we don't have time to, it's difficult to find the time to prepare meals, especially if you have kids that you're taking care of. It's so much easier to grab a box of frozen food and throw it in the microwave or something. But moving away from that type of food, moving away from stuff that is mass produced, because every single cell in our body is created and made from the food that we ingest. That's it. Our cells are constantly, we're constantly sloughing cells off and we're constantly putting new cells in, and our brain swims inside of that soup, So we talked about becoming your own cheerleader, focusing on that 100%. And out of everything I'm talking about, guys, the reality is you can only implement one right now and focus on it for like a month, 100%, like every day. Have a note, put a note on your mirror. Today, I am blah, 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 whatever you're gonna focus on. My best cheerleader. Today, I eat like a farmer, because we wanna move towards, we wanna solve the depression without looking for that quick fix like a pill. And first of all, I'm not a doctor, like I'm not a psychologist. I'm just somebody who's passionate about creating positive psychology and creating a vibrant and energetic body, because I realize how powerful it is, because I've been on the other side. I suffered from brain fog for years, and it pushed me to the point I didn't even want to talk to people. I felt like there was like this fog in front of my brain, and I just couldn't interact with the world. I couldn't remember numbers. I couldn't remember anything, and it was it damaged my life. It damaged my life. And so I knew that there had to be a way to get out. So we talked about becoming your own cheerleader. We talked about the power of consciousness impact on side of our body. We talked about the power of food. What else do we want to talk about? Oh yes, the super powerful energy healer. And I know what you're thinking if you're not into that world, like energy healer, pff, come on. I used to think the same thing. There are people inside of this world that just see into something that most of us cannot. So I was fortunate enough to take a 2.5 week course with this energy healer, and I got to see like what she really could do. I mean, because we became really close. The people inside of this, it was a neurolinguistic programming course. We got to be really close, and so we all kind of worked with each other and worked together. And so I got to see what this woman could do, and I was fortunate enough to interview her on this channel, and I got to ask her some questions. And if you want to see that, the name of that YouTube show is I don't remember. When I go back and edit this, I'll put it in the cards and I'll put it in the description. Something about evolving, becoming your best self, something like that. Anyway, her name is Gars Chan, and you can look her up at Chinese Energy Healing. I think that's what her website is. Anyway, she talked about a diet. Like, not like when we hear diet, we think food. I'm not talking about food. I'm talking about the diet that we bring into our world, the diet that we bring into our experience, our reality. So that means the people that we associate with. Like when you look at Zig Ziglar and a lot of these, Napoleon Hill, when you go back and you look at like their process for creating a vibrant, healthy, powerful life, creating change, creating abundance inside of our lives, what they talk about, what they focus on is they focus on, they say like people outside, the people that we bring into our life, they're gonna have a profound impact on who we are. Like we are a summation of the 5 people that we spend the most time with. And that's something that she was talking about. When we talk about the diet of our life, improving the diet of our life, the people that we allow into our world, they are going to have a heavy impact on how we see our perceptions, what we focus on, what we think is important, what we talk about. That's heavy, guys. I mean, that's powerful, is our circle. And then we talked about food, the power of the food. So that falls into this diet category. Music. This was a big one. Before I had this aha moment that what I allow into my world is going to make up how I see it, how I feel about my life, I listened to all kinds of music. But mostly it was like what is popular today. At that time I was like 18, 19, 20. So I was listening to club music. I was listening to all kinds of music that didn't talk about good stuff. Like it talked about negative shit. And it sounded cool, and that's what everyone was listening to. So I was like, I didn't see anything wrong with it. But when I realized like the words that I'm listening to, what is this song telling my brain? Because there's a difference between who we are and our brain. Our brain, our subconscious mind, is just a computer. That's it. It's a super powerful computer that's here to serve us. And then we have our awareness, that spark of divinity that lives within us, the thing that is aware of the thoughts and the feelings that are happening inside of our body and our life. There's that part. It's that part that's like hidden away, tucked inside of you, that nobody really gets close to, except for maybe the people that are absolutely closest to us. But so you think about that, brain is just absorbing the stuff that's coming in. And so if we're listening to heavy rap or metal that's just talking about nasty stuff, what mountain range is that? Very beautiful there. Big Corona. Good to see you, brother. This is in Flathead Valley, Montana. And so we got Glacier National Park right over there. And that's actually back there directly what you guys are looking at. That's Jewel Basin. It's lovely. It is lovely. Yeah, so when I shifted the music that I listened to, I did notice a change. I mean, it takes a while. All this stuff is a culmination. Like you start working on one, like pretty soon, all of a sudden you're at this place where you notice like every morning when you wake up, you feel different. Things inside of your life will shift automatically just because of the changes that are happening within inside you. And the reason why I say that is we can look at it and we say it's manifesting, man. It's beautiful. And I don't know, I'm not real big on that type of language. I think what it is as we shift the things inside of our life, how we approach life, our perceptual filters change, and then that means that how we make decisions change. So every little decision that we make when in a relation to somebody that we're close to, whereas if we start fixing ourselves, if we start taking care of the diet of our life, now when we run into a challenge with somebody that we love, a relationship that we have, a boss, a coworker, whatever, and they hit those trigger points inside of us, if we've started to handle that kind of stuff for ourselves, suddenly we respond differently. We make a different decision. It impacts us differently. Maybe we get to a place where they say that thing, and before it would trigger a cascade of negative feelings and frustrations inside of our life, and now they say it, and I'm like, point, it's not where like I don't care. I don't think that's healthy. But it gets to the point where we realize like that's their perception. It has nothing to do with me. What matters is that I am my own cheerleader and that I'm looking out for numero uno. So shifting, I got off track there, but shifting music. So like what I listen to now, like just a little offside, like I listen to anything that has a positive message. Like I love music. I love all music. As long as it's not telling me to go out, get drunk, beat women, or all kinds of terrible things about like the self, that stuff, I will turn that off in a heartbeat. I'd rather have silence. Chris, what is going on, brother? It's good to see you on here. It's good to see you on here. All right, so we talked about changing this diet based upon like what this energy healer told me about creating this positive movement inside our lives. And here's something that's really big, guys, because I so appreciate you guys being on here. This is so cool. This is so cool. Is that what we're talking about? Like the title of this video was depression solving, right? We're not talking about depression solving. Like depression, that's just a label, that's a word that's thrown at it. What we're talking about is creating powerful and positive movement and creating a vibrant and energetic lifestyle. That's what we're talking about. Like when we think about the word depression, what does that actually mean? It means everything is suppressed, it's depressed, it's held back. We're talking about letting it go, letting loose, bursting forth into this new forward movement. So we talked about food, music, people, changing activity. Like one habit that we can change, if we can do one thing inside of our life, just implement one, like going to the gym every morning, just make it a habit. Even if it's for 15 minutes, it's like, man, I don't want to go to the gym. That's a lot of work. Just go for 15 minutes. Just making that happen. You never know what's going to happen. The people that you'll meet, the things that you'll find that all of a sudden you become passionate about. Like I think life responds to us. If we put out the effort initially, life will give us like little ropes where it's just like, just grab that rope and just follow it. Follow that line and see where it takes you. I think that's I could go on and on about this stuff, like where you get your news from. And I've covered that a lot inside previous videos. Like, where is it you're getting your news from? Like what books are you, what books are you consuming? A big one that is video games. Like, what video games are you playing? Like, I know that, like, Call of Duty, I used to play it all the time. Like that. Yeah, that's fun. That's fun. And I don't think I ever covered the Tetris effect, which was a real thing that I wanted to talk about here. Like all these things, they fall into this category of, I just told off this quack psychologist of mine that tried to put me on this crap called FRX. Yeah, good call, man. Yeah, that stuff is hardcore. I don't know if I can say good call or not good call. I'm not a doctor or a psychologist. All I know is that I would rather take the responsibility of my health, my well-being, into my own hands. And like I think drugs are a last resort. Based upon what I've seen inside my life. Somebody very, very close to me has paranoid schizophrenia, and he's tried different medications, and it just, they throw him off. Like either way, he's having a difficult time. Either way, he's having a rough time. But he's saying, no, I'm going to figure this out on my own. And I give him ultimate props for that. Ultimate props. But I think what I was going to say is that like ultimately, like all these things, what they come down to is this. It's just what is lying in front of us. So often we're looking for this answer. Like we say, like, God, whoever it is that you believe in, please just give me an answer. Please just give me an answer. And the reality is that the answer is right in front of us. Life gives us the answers. Sometimes they are right there, and all we have to do is just open our eyes a little bit more to accept what is right there for us. Right there for us. And that's, like it could be any one of these things. Just changing one habit. And so changing depression is not about getting from A to Z, it's about just taking one step today. And if I could focus on any of them for myself, it always comes down to health. I know if my body is not healthy, if I am putting stuff inside of my body that it does not like, I know that for me to try to stay positive, energetic, make good decisions, be able to relate with people in a good manner, I know that all that's going to be blown out of the water. And so my focus is on the food that I eat, what I drink. So that's mainly just water. And, occasionally I'll good food close to the farm. And then exercise. If I'm not exercising, I feel it. If I'm not out there moving at least 15 to 20 minutes, 3 days a week, like I feel a decline in my energetic powers. And so like all these things, I know that this is all basic stuff. I know it, but it's powerful. So the Tetris effect. I did talk about that. If you guys are watching, you did hear that. But the importance of it, so basically a quick rundown again for the new people that just jumped on here. The Tetris effect is a group of students played Tetris, where you try to line blocks up coming down 4 different shapes, and they played that for 3 days straight. And what they experienced afterwards is they were looking at things and shapes and trying to figure out how to put them together to make a line. They were dreaming about Tetris. It came into their awareness. And all of a sudden, like that focus, the focus of playing Tetris, created patterns inside of their daily lives where that's what they were seeing. And so if we create patterns inside of our life for seeing positivity, for not focusing on negativity, like there are a lot of studies that show that lawyers or, what do you call them? The people that work at like the IRS, that look for tax evasion. Like these people, because of their career, because of their profession, they're constantly looking for errors. They're constantly looking for things that are wrong. They have a negativity focused mindset. They're always looking for what's wrong. That comes back into their life. They have a reduced chance of seeing opportunity. They're focused on what is wrong. You could go up to them and say, "The weather is absolutely beautiful this morning, isn't it?" And they'd say, "Something stinks over here. My coffee was cold this morning, way too many grounds. I had to go to the bathroom right away." Like instantly they'd be focused on what's wrong, what's negative. And maybe you know somebody like that. Maybe you are that person. I don't know. And I've tried to work around people like that. It's difficult for the people that are around them, isn't it? It's totally difficult. So that's the power of the Tetris effect, is that what we focus on. So if we're constantly focusing on how we can become more positive, how we can become happier, how we can create more mental energy, more vibrancy inside of our lives, how we can create more harmony and more peace inside of ourselves. When we're searching for that, we're going to be focused on that. We're going to see those opportunities. They're going to present themselves inside of our life. And then it's just continuing to follow that thread that takes us to the end goal, the end place that we want to be at. So, to sum all this up with you guys, out of everything I said, and drop this in the comments, let me know. What is one thing that you can take away from this? One thing that you can focus on for the next week. And that's it. Not looking at, a month from now, not focusing on any of that. Just one thing that you can change inside of your life right now that you could focus on that is going to give you that more mental energy, more vibrancy. Is it focusing on your consciousness? Is it focusing on being your own biggest cheerleader? Is it focused on remaining in the present moment? Not thinking about where we fucked up in the past. Not thinking about where our future is going, or the possible errors that could be showing up inside of our lives, or mistakes. Not thinking about that. Is it going to be focused on the diet of our life? Is it going to be focused on the food that we eat, or how much rest we give ourselves, or the music that we listen to? Is it going to be focusing on the circle of friends that we have? Like who are our friends, and are they people that are lifting us? It's difficult when we have, like when we have family members that drain our energy and drain our positivity. And that's such a tough one. I've struggled with this for a long time, and that's, like, how do you approach that? Because we need to take care of ourselves, right? We need to take care of ourselves. We need to continue moving forward and creating that positive momentum. And if we have somebody inside of our lives that are holding us back and pulling us back, where do we say, I'm not going to do that anymore? At what point do we say that? And I can't answer that for you. I know inside my own life it's been a struggle. And what I've just come to the realization of is that I am going to love with boundaries. We have to create our own boundaries for ourselves. You know, what are we willing to accept inside of our lives? What are we not willing to accept? You know, at what point do we say, nope, no more, not going to do that. I'm not going to deal with that. And then we give the other person the opportunity to approach us differently. You know, because if we're just open, even if the other person doesn't respect our boundaries, and if we're just open and let that type of behavior continue that is damaging to us, it's our fault. We're responsible for that. So when it comes down to it, if we have to put the boundaries down if we want to maintain our positivity and mental energy. Anyway, guys, if I could sum everything up, I would just say take one step, focus on it. Focus on just mastering that one portion. This is like a compounding effect. Broke my foot in 3 places. Oh man. Antidepressant. And when I told her, she got defensive and tried to blame. Yep. Yeah. So, yeah, just focus on one thing. Focus on building, you know, and as you master one, you can start implementing the other. You'll start feeling that momentum. You'll start feeling that positive movement inside of your life. You'll start feeling more energy. And that's all it takes. And once that ball starts rolling, it's like the skies parted, and it's like life can be beautiful. Life can be beautiful. And I think that's entirely possible. So anyway, guys, I appreciate you so much for being on here. And I hope that I dropped something, at least one thing, that will help you inside of your life move forward, deal with depression, you know, create that positive momentum. Because like I said, man, it's not about depression. It's about positive movement. Loved it, man. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that, Armin. All right, guys. I will see you on Monday with Mentor Mornings. Until then, rise unconquered. Social skills. Right on, Chris. Right on. All right, guys. You are welcome. Rise unconquered, guys. We'll see you on